Welcome back to the class. In this lesson, we'll be designing the main call to action, and this is arguably the most important section in the page because it can be a deal breaker. Visitors will use this section to buy or to buy the product or download the free version, but essentially this is where the users are converting. So let's make sure we do this right. And let's get to it. A quick glance at the wireframe shows us that originally I had planned to create the pricing area and the call to action separately. But I think it's a much better idea to incorporate both of these into a single section because it makes sense, right? If I were to do them separately, I would have two sets of buttons. But if I merge them, I'm going to have a single set of buttons. So it's much clearer that way. Also, this column of the pricing table is for the pro version or the paid version of the app. So we need to make this stand out somehow. All right. So let's get to it. We're going to start by typing the text that we'll use for the section heading. So let's actually go ahead and copy these, paste them in here. And I think we're going to use the exact same styles that we used here. So let's do a copy paste. So copy properties, paste properties. And same goes for this, copy and paste. Let's align them to the center, and let's also align them to the center with each other. And let's Shift A and add 32 pixels of distance between them. Okay, great. Now, let's go ahead and add our pricing table. For this, here's what we'll do. We'll start by bringing in the logo. So we'll go to Brand Assets, Logo Color. And let's resize this logo so it's 48 pixels in height. We're going to use the colored version for the first column of the pricing table. And here we basically need to display the word free to show the price of the plan. Then the list of features and the call to action, the button for download. That should be relatively easy to do. So let's grab this text and we're going to paste it here. And it's just going to say free. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what we're doing. Again, this will align it to the center. We'll align it with the logo. We'll Shift A, these two, to add auto layout, and we'll set 32 pixels of distance between them. Next, let's add the list of features. So for that, I'm going to grab a paragraph, simple paragraph. Let's paste it in here. And let's start typing in the features. So now we'll align these in the middle. Font size 18. Line height, let's choose 32 pixels because I want these to be spaced out a little bit more. And finally, what we need is one of those fancy buttons that we made. So copy that, paste it in. All right, so now what we can do is we can select everything, Shift A to add an auto layout. Make sure to uncheck this bit. It's going to be vertical, and we're going to do 64 pixels horizontal, vertical, padding, and also 64 spacing between items. So to this, we can actually add a fill color of white. Let's add a drop shadow. And let's also round off the corners. 8 pixels should do just fine. All right, so now this element should fit within 4 of these grid columns. If it doesn't, we can simply resize this element, because this is what gives this entire frame its width. If you don't understand that, here's a very simple explanation, right? This piece of text, this text box, has a width currently of 260 pixels. The frame that I created with auto layout, which is this, has a horizontal padding of 64 pixels. So besides these 260, we need to add 64 to the left, 64 to the right. And whenever I resize this text box, my entire frame resizes along with it. It's quite simple, actually. So we can do that until we get to the perfect width so that it fits within 4 grid columns. Now, let's duplicate this and create the column for the Pro version. Now, if you remember what I said previously about making this stand out, because this is, after all, for the Pro version, well, there's a very simple way we can do that. Instead of using white fill, we can use our main gradient. And then we can simply select this, this logo, and we can make everything white. Like so. And then I can select this entire thing, this entire element, and I can change the colors to white. Now, this description is not entirely accurate because we need to add a few things. So the Pro version has all the features in free, plus multiple budgets, goal tracking, sync between devices, reports, and sync with your bank. This I'm going to make bold, and I'm going to be using my secondary color, which is this. And I'm going to set it to 100%. Let's not forget to change the price. So this is going to be $9.99 per month. And let's also change the style of this button. So I'm going to use this same secondary color for the background. And for the text inside, I'm going to use gray, maybe 80%, something like that. Cool. So now let's group these up. Let's position these at 64 pixels from the text above. Let's group them up, Command G. And what do you think? Should we end here? How does this look to you? Personally, I think we could use with a bit more separation from the section above, and also a bit more emphasis on this section, because after all, this is the most important section in the page, right? So to keep up with our motif here, what I'm going to do is simply copy this this angled stripe. I'm going to paste it in here, and let's see, I'm just going to nudge it until I find the right balance. And I'm also going to make it bigger. Like so. And I'm going to put it under our newly created group. And then I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it inside like so. And I think that looks pretty good. Maybe just a tad bigger. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So now we just have to play around with the gradients a little bit. So let's open up our plugin and let's do something with what a nice shade of blue here. Maybe something like that or like that. I don't want something that's too dark, but I don't want something that's too heavily colored either. So I think maybe I'll leave it to that because it also has some colors that can be found on this section here. So that's good. And also I'm going to duplicate it, rotate it a little bit. And for it, we can even use a different set of colors. Maybe something like this, or maybe something a little bit more subdued. We can even lower the opacity on this layer. Yeah, so I think that looks just about right. Of course, you can always go in and nibble at the details, get everything tuned in just right. But for now, I think this is good enough. So as the final thing, as we're always doing, select everything, Command G to group everything. And we're going to call this main CTA, or call to action. Cool. All right, and as you saw in this lesson, I kind of veered away from following the wireframe, and instead I created my own layout, and that's totally okay to do. As I was saying in a previous lesson, the wireframe is there to guide you, and it's there to serve as a guide for the content, really, not necessarily for the layout. And this section here was a fine example of that. Now, as per usual, go ahead and create your own version of this main call to action, either by following the wireframe or do exactly what I did, or just come up with something new. It's entirely up to you. Now, once you do this, you're ready for the final section of the page, and that is the footer. That's coming up in the next lesson.